We heard from industry leaders, we heard from agencies, we heard from brands, we've heard from a lot of people that everybody listens to in this industry. And I think the one thing that we heard loud and clear is that our industry is changing. It is rapidly evolving, and it's rapidly evolving to become more of an audience-based industry. Long gone are the days of total TV buying, just putting up a spot and hopefully someone's going to respond to it. I think there's a lot of choices and a lot of options now that allow brands to connect directly to their consumers. So I heard that loud and clear today. What I also heard was an interest in how we grow the scale of audience-based buying on television, and how we make it easier to buy television with an audience. And I think at Dish, we've been asking those questions for years, and we've been starting to answer those questions. All that we're trying to do is take all of the impressions that we have access to and make them available on an audience level to our brands.
So there's a big conversation about the set-top box, but you guys are really doing a lot cross-screen, you're doing a lot on IP-delivered devices,
Yep.
You're doing a lot programmatically. Talk about that side.
So I think first and foremost, the set-top box is a critical piece of the audience puzzle, because the set-top box is a very personal piece of equipment that sits in a household. And it's that set-top box that gives us access to that premier first-party data. So I don't want to discount the use of that set-top box. But as our industry is changing, certainly Dish has seen the opportunity to provide a solution for people who may not have a set-top box in their household, a la Sling TV. And Sling TV is an OTT, over-the-top television service that is live TV viewing. And so when you have the ability for an audience that doesn't necessarily want to have set-top boxes in their household, now there's a solution where they can watch live and VOD television. And by the way, we as the sales organization have the same access to the same 2 minutes an hour that we can then sell those audiences. So for us, it's about uniting our audiences on our linear platform, on our set-top boxes, and uniting our audiences that we have on our other devices. And by the way, also uniting the audience that we attract on our TV Everywhere solution. Ultimately for us, it's about taking every impression and putting it together and offering that out. If, you know, I think the comment earlier was, if you want to find left-handed nurses who bowl, we'll find left-handed nurses who bowl, whether they're watching in front of their TV in their living room or on their iPad or on their iPhone, or whether it's on Dish or on Sling. That's ultimately our goal.
So there was some discussion in the last panel by some of the a big media agency executive, you know, complaining or wishing that to have more access to first-party data, which is very valuable. So explain, you know, your thoughts on that.
So first-party data is incredibly valuable, and we work with every one of those panelists that are out there. It was said that the data is readily available on a per-campaign basis, and that's absolutely true. We work with great partners like Experian and others to be able to find the data and calculate the data and process the data so that we can transact on that data. But at the end of the day, we've got a very pristine set of data that is covered with lots of PII, personally identifiable information. So at Dish, we do everything we can to make sure that that is completely protected. That said, we have talked to every agency partner about taking a slice of that first-party data or an aggregated look at that first-party data so that they can use it for other elements, but it's not free. And you know, when we know that we have such a powerful source of data, we need to make sure that the value goes with it. I think what we've seen in the last even just a few months is that our data is incredibly important. We were able to renew our deal with comScore, formerly Rentrack, that we had a relationship with, and that demonstrates that there's still an absolute need for our precious, pristine first-party data. But in addition to that, we were able to strike a deal with Nielsen, where we now supply them our set-top box data so that they can use it in different ways and make their product that's out there even stronger. So the set-top box data and the set-top box are still a very important piece of this puzzle.
And finally, Mike Bologna said on stage that he hopes that the walled garden will be somewhat unified. He hopes or predicts in 3 years where a big agency can do a media buy across the addressable operators. I mean, what are your thoughts about how that might develop?
So Mike and Tracy and Amy can do an addressable buy across all the operators today. It's just very labor intensive. I think as the industry progresses, I do believe that there will be an opportunity for networks to partake in the addressable business. And I think it's not going to be tomorrow, but I think it'll certainly be in a number of years where the technology that the operators have will be used to help the networks partake in this marketplace. But a lot has to happen between now and then. A lot has to happen regarding that data. A lot has to happen regarding the programming contracts. But ultimately, the whole idea is to be able to have a product that is wanted by the marketplace and that can grow scale to grow revenue.
And finally, Adam, what about more inventory? I know we've spoken about that. You know, you guys have a lot of inventory, but there's some discussion that eventually there'll be more than the 2 minutes. And how do you see that playing out if, you know?
So at Dish, we're all about yield management. We get 2 minutes an hour on average. That's what everybody talks about, those famous 2 minutes. But that equates to about 6 million 30-second spots a year. It's a tremendous amount of inventory. I can sit in front of you today and tell you we're not running out of inventory. What we do run out of is how we allocate the inventory. We have to make sure that we're constantly evaluating the different needs of our different businesses. But if I can move more inventory into an addressable product that yields higher CPMs, then I'm going to do that at maybe the cost or the expense of some lower priced inventory. But ultimately what I need to do is make sure that all the inventory is where it needs to be to satisfy the needs of all of the different types of business that we write. In a year from now, I think the marketers themselves will have adjusted more to the addressable business, because we see that every year anyway. We grow that addressable business, and I know the other operators grow their addressable business, because we move from a test and learn scenario to this is a viable part of my media budget. And we've seen brands already move big percentages of their annual media spend into addressable because of the value that it brings. So I think a year from now I'm going to be able to tell you I've grown my addressable business even more. I've added new brands, I've added new agencies that are transacting in a digital way, but I also think in a year from now I'm going to be able to tell you that the programmatic process that we're enabling is going to bring some automation to that addressable process that will eventually allow new advertisers and different types of advertisers transact in an easier and faster way.